Testing. Ah, is it because it got unplugged? Fantastic. Okay, let's try it one more time. Hopefully, audio is coming through this time. Thanks very much in chat for letting me know that I think I stepped on my cord and unplugged myself. Alright, it looks like it's responsive now. Cool. So, once again, hello and welcome to Plugin Along, a stream dedicated to LOTRO plugins. Last time on Plugin Along, we talked about nothing at all related to plugins. We talked about epic battles in Lord of the Rings Online, what they are and how they work. We have epic battles here on the Treebeard server now, and so it's fun getting into that system. I've never really felt that comfortable doing it before, and part of it is that there's just a certain amount of bootstrapping that goes into it. Let's see, can I even see it on this character? Epic Battles has a parallel system of trait point called promotion points that acts kind of similar to your trait tree panel. And so when you first start out with Epic Battles, you can't interact with a lot of the cool systems that are available in Epic Battles. And so there's definitely a bootstrapping system that happens where the more you do Epic Battles, the more of these promotion points that you get, the better you can do at Epic Battles. So we talked about a lot of that last time, and so we didn't actually make any progress on doing plugins, but that's okay. Sometimes we just do other things on stream. We're here in the greenhouse at Thorns Hall, and we're gonna hopefully craft some plugins while we craft some coffee beans. Okay. As always, yes, today we're going to try to finish up the festival token restructuring in Festival Buddy. We'll see how that goes. As always, feel free to jump into chat with your thoughts or questions, or letting me know that my microphone has once again come unplugged. And in the meantime, one other thing, there is a reminder that tomorrow we have a casual stroll with scenario through, I think it was Eastern and Central Gondor. Someone said in chat. You can type !world for more information. Well, I'll just do that right now. All right. Cool. So let's go ahead and pull up some code. And yes, hello to people in chat. Hello to Delirium. Hello to Wizik. Thanks for helping me out with that sound problem. I was feeling cold in here earlier, despite the fact that it is not actually cold in here. So I've got some hot water. Our electric kettle has an option where instead of going all the way to 100 degrees Celsius, you can just stop at 60 degrees Celsius, which is almost drinkable. Okay, so let's bring up where we were last time. We were working with the tokens.lua, and we can see there's a bunch of in-progress changes where we were starting to play around with things. But that was 2 weeks ago, so just to refresh my own memory, I'm going to go through some of the changes that are outstanding in our working directory, see if any of them are ready to be committed, and we'll go ahead and pull up one of our plugin data files. Well, we're going to have to make one first, aren't we? Let's go ahead and make a plugin data file by loading Festival Buddy. Oh, it doesn't load anymore. Ah, yes. Okay, we'll go look at an old one then. Yes. We are in the middle of refactoring things, so it's gonna be a moment before we can actually load things. Okay, plugin data, and let's go ahead and open up one of those. Just looking at my archive directory here. There we go. Okay, so the thing that we're looking at is tokens, and the specific problem that we were on the way to addressing before we kind of veered onto the on-ramp of some other problem is that the tokens are indexed via an internal index that is identical to how they are listed in the user interface, which is not great. So even if we weren't storing these tokens with something a little bit more human readable, like Mithril or Farmer's Fair Festival token or whatever, the fact that you cannot change the order in the UI without messing up how the data is interpreted the next time this loads was the problem we were attempting to solve. So let's go ahead and look at what other things are happening here. All right, the side quest that we're working on. The way tokens is stored in _lang doesn't seem right. We want to break it apart into IDs, like what tokens do we have, versus the order in the UI. And the barter items uses numerical variables like Spring Festival. We can probably just change this. All right, so some side quest items. Awesome. Altwin. Hey, this was just a typo. We can just get rid of this. Not get rid of it. We can go ahead and commit this change so that it's no longer an outstanding change in our working directory. Only add tokens that the player has. Fixed typo. All right, we're here in the barter items window. We're seeing some of those changes. Let's go ahead and open that in an external file comparison utility. And we can see the big thing is we're adding those quotes around these festivals. Instead of Summer Festival, it's quote Summer Festival. Spring Festival turns into quote Spring Festival. Right, that all seems pretty reasonable. We'll see how well that works. We can also see in the barter window, we needed to make some changes to take that into account. So we had the token ID, select a festival token key, yeah. And then the get item from ID, token ID. And then we had a token code. Okay, that's very plausible. We'll need a get item from ID function somewhere, presumably. Okay, this is where we were saying, hey, we're no longer using lang tokens, which is what the tokens are. Instead, we're talking about tokens UI order. Cool. Tokens. I am wondering if the tokens v10 to v11 is part of why Festival Buddy wouldn't load. Because this function isn't in the global namespace. So we'd have to reference it with prior save formats. Let me go ahead and fix that here real fast. Prior save formats dot. That's probably how that needs to be written. We'll come back into that. Options window, that's fine. Strings, oh my goodness, so many strings. All right, here's where we're taking the tokens and splitting it apart into a different location. And hey, we have a to-do to add a function to convert the one into the other. Awesome. Okay, let's take a look at tokens specifically. That's pretty cool. I'm wondering if we eliminated the need for some of these things. It's certainly starting to look like it. Oh, right. We wanted to eliminate these, but they were in use in the barter items. It's all starting to come back to me. I can see why we were suddenly like, oh, we need to get rid of these uses. Okay, so we have a couple of things then. We want to get rid of all of these here. Let's pull up our to-do list. Okay. No, wrong window. One of these days, they're going to need to add some sort of keyboard button that you can hold down that says, when I click, I am resizing the nearest window, so that people who don't have as fine-grained motor control with their mouse will still be able to resize their windows reasonably well. Because this whole thing with just a couple of pixels at the edge, that's not great. Okay, so to finish this up, we need the import function to convert. We need delete constants at top of tokens.lua. Nope, tokens.lua. And I think barter items looks done. I think we were able to finish that up last time. So I think when we do delete these, that's going to give us a sign for that. Okay. This looks done now. So, how do we tell if we are in fact done? Other thing is just comment these things out and see what happens. So if we go ahead and, whoops. Oh man, how do I do a multi-edit in Visual Studio Code? I'm killing myself here. There we go. Hold down Alt-Shift and then drag, and that is a way to do it. So we're going to go ahead and comment these things out. But the final thing is we need to actually be able to load the file. Load the plugin. So let's hit that load plugin and see what error message, if any, we get. Okay, so attempt to index global saved character data in the tokens. All right, let's look at that. Okay, so where is this being called, and why don't we have access to that yet? Well, we're passing in a thing. We're passing in the chars. We should be able to iterate through that. Okay, let's see if that's the problem. All right, attempt to index field tokens. Awesome. So we're going to work our way through the issues that came across all of this breaking the tokens storage up. And start with that. 710. We're looking at Lang tokens. That doesn't exist anymore. In fact, we should just go ahead and pull up a search for that. Any place that we're looking at Lang tokens, that can't exist anymore. Instead, we've got Lang tokens has been divided into two things. Token IDs. In fact, let's document this at the top. Lang tokens is now split between, we have token IDs, the actual IDs for the tokens, and token UI order. Oops. The order the tokens show up in the UI. So anything that's looking at Lang tokens, we need to figure out why it was looking at that. If it was looking at it for the token ID information or the user interface ordering. Fortunately, there's only a couple in here. Okay. So this was actually part of our loading server-wide character data, and this is a converting things to All right, converting or making sure older file formats look okay. So specify the deed category in pairs. So let's take a look at what they're talking about here. The way it was stored is we had things in tokens here. So data category.tokens. So we're looking for KV in pairs here. And it looks like this is a way to clear out if there's data in the tokens that doesn't reflect data that we have anymore. Some old festival token, maybe we want to clear that out. Now, Festival Buddy has been pretty stable on this end for a while now, but I think it's fine to keep that kind of idea in there. So what we're really looking for is do we need all those IDs in order to convert things? Okay, so these were looking at the UI anyway. So we can convert that on over. And let's bring this on over here. So this is looking to say if that index in the UI is visible, then or not visible, then go ahead and delete this thing. So we can replace that with if token UI order, and that's going to be festival ID and K. Then, really, if not that, if that does not exist, then we want to go ahead and clean that up as well. And I'm going to go ahead and break it out so it's not a single line here. But that's the general idea. So they were saying if this thing still exists, we've got a UI order that we can check against. However, that's a concern just because the UI order could be changing for new stuff, and we really are kind of curious about how this used to be. So it could be useful to have that tokens v1 to v11 in play earlier. To do convert tokens v10 to v11 first, then check for the presence of the token ID. I think that's what we need to do, but for right now, this will get it compiling. Okay, that was the first place that we had that. All right, you can keep making stuff now. Okay. Where else? Iterate the tokens by numerical index to keep the stated order. Refresh token view. Cool. So we're talking about the UI order here. So for k equals 1, the number in token UI order, selected festival, do, and then the v equals this as well. And v should be then something that we can pass in, it looks like, to get token index. Cool, let's see where else we're using that. find all references. Just those two. All right, let's see what get token index is trying to do. Item ID, hit item from ID. Oh. Okay, that's not going to be working quite the way we want it to then. Backing out a second. Let's take a look at just the Spring Festival and how these look side by side. So we're iterating, we want to iterate through in the UI order. And what we wanted to get was the old ID. Let's take a look at that in strings. So this used to be numerical index equals ID, and that was both the order in the user interface and the ID for each of the tokens. So what we want is we're using V. This should really be token ID, just to make it a little bit easier to understand what we want here. And then with the token UI order, so local token name, token key equals token UI order, selected festival, K. And are we using K anywhere else? Let's take a look. Again, we're going to just use that find all references. Couple here. We are. Yes, we are, but in a way that we eventually want to get rid of. So, okay, that is going to be going into the token UI order. K equals 1 to the number of that. So that's the, yeah, let's go ahead and rename that. I wonder if there's a refactoring that we can do. Refactor. Really want to do rename symbol. There we go. Okay, so we're renaming that to token UI index. Okay, so we're getting the key off of that, the token. I mean, it's kind of like an internal name, but the token key, and then we want to use that token key in this table. So that is tokens ID selected festival. And we're going to pass in that token key here. And that gives us the token ID that we need that we can pass to get token index. This will check each of the tokens for the selected festival to see if they exist in the wallet. Cool. Well, maybe that will still work then. Again, what does token and get token index do? We take an item ID. Sure, that's item ID. Get item from ID. Item name. Wow, that is not what I would call a great algorithm. Every time we call get token index, we iterate through everything in your wallet, looking for things that match the thing we just asked for. And we know this is happening inside of a loop. And every time we do refresh token view. So a friendly way to do this would be to make a single call to a function that iterates through my wallet and puts together a table of everything interesting in there, every token that we might care about, return that in a single go, and then be able to look those up from in here. I think that would be better than iterating through everything in your wallet every single time that we are looking for a specific thing for this festival. Since we already have a selected festival, we could just find the things in your wallet that correspond to the current festival, return that, and be able to work with it. So let's go ahead and make a note to ourselves. To do. Every time through this loop, we call get token index, which iterates through every item in the wallet. Replace this logic by getting the relevant details from the wallet for this festival first. Okay, so we have a thought on what to do there. And we can even put that in our to-do. Logic fixes. Main win. N squared. Iterations through a wallet contents. Okay, so we've spotted a potential problem. We've documented. We're going to move on. Undefined token IDs. Okay, so we're probably good to move on to the next thing that we found, which is aligning tokens. What are we doing here in refresh alt display? There's two of them here, actually. So the first thing is we're getting an item from an ID. So we're doing a very similar thing where we are adding tokens that a player has. Awesome. So we're iterating through the character tokens right now. And for each one that they have, and that we have data about, do something. Okay. Knowing eventually that how this file is going to do things is going to change. For right now, we care about if that index is in play. Okay. So we're looking for token UI order, selected festival, K. And they're asking for it to not be nil. That's kind of the same as checking for truthiness of it. Then we're going to go ahead and do this. And we're going to get we need the ID this time. So we're going to go ahead and get the token IDs of the selected festival of K. Neat. So no more references to Lang__ tokens. Awesome. Let's go ahead and see what happens if we try to load Festival Buddy. It loads. Awesome. Is it functional? Probably not. But does it load? Yes. Now we can see for Spring Festival, the very first in the list here, we have 38 of the spring leaves and 98 mithril coins. So if we unload this and all goes well, we should see something like that in the actual file. Now that's the archived one. Let's go ahead and look up what we have here. So we're looking in Documents, Lord of the Rings Online. We're going to Plugin Data. This is going to be in an account, server, all characters, and we're going to Festival Buddy character data. Okay, well, we can see that we have Spring Festival information saved out here. Awesome. And if we load it back up, we can see we at least have loaded in. Now we do know that for the current character, the information here is going to be refreshed from the wallet. So this is mostly for if you're loading as a different character. Rizumacher is the only character in here right now. But at least the simple case of can we load the plugin, we're back. Awesome. Okay, so what did we say? To do import function to convert and delete constants at the top of tokens. Well, they are commented out, but we might actually need those in the conversion. So let's go ahead and pull those in for right now on the assumption that we do need those. But let's see, we need that to be old festival token data equals, and then we need to sort them into their appropriate categories. And why does this start at harvest math? Did I delete more than that? I might have. Let's grab the rest of that. In fact, let's pull everything from what used to be there, just in case. So what we want to do is we want to be able to take a file that had things under tokens, under the Spring section and do something about that. And so for our purposes, it'd be useful if we could make use of the, for instance, Spring variable. So where are you defined? Okay, that's in strings. Do we have strings by the time we get here? I think we do. So we are going to be able to use those. Okay, so we want to make some sections here, but let's go ahead and just modify those really briefly. Cool. Okay, so we have sections for each of these. Within Old Festival data, we know that for Festival 1, that what we really want to do is have an old and new. So we want to invert this table here. Now, whenever I want to do that kind of a manipulation, I tend to default to Sublime Text. That is the hammer for my nails. And we're just going to go ahead and yoink that and say that equals, and it'll look like this at the end. So let's take a look at what we see here. So what we want to say is, oh, you have 1. We want to store that as the string Spring Festival. You have 2. We want that to be Spring Mithril, and so on. I don't have any of the rest of them, but we'll still store that data. Okay. So we want to do that conversion for each of these. And we'll go ahead and do probably one at a time, just for an abundance of caution. I guess we don't really need it to be one at a time, but we'll put it into place one at a time. Okay, so for each one of these things that has a semicolon, what we want to do is go ahead and kill the semicolon, select the number and cut it, get rid of the space equals space, come back to the beginning, have a bracket, number, close bracket, equals, quote, end quote, semicolon. So that's what we're replacing this with. But we do need to slide each one of these into the table. So that's our summer. Really? Okay, harvest math is next. Thank you. Yule. Farmer's Fair. Hobnanigans. And Midsummer. Can't help but notice in the Guild Association's not a part of that. Gotta add that to the table. Equals, there we go. Okay, so that's our reverse lookup table for the old data. And that's gonna let us convert a file using this old format to the new format, regardless of what changes happen with the UI layout, with anything like that. When we're doing the upgrade from tokens 1.0 to 1.1, this is all we're looking at. And this is the sort of the historical record of that. Okay. So, with that, this function, converts this to this. So that's what we're looking to accomplish. Once we have that in place, we are then going to need code that understands how to load in that new version of this. But one step at a time. Okay. Now we're doing things a little backwards because this data is nested underneath a numerical festival, and we really want that to become, quote, spring, unquote, instead of just one. But this felt like a microcosm of the problem. So if we can do this, we can do the other, and then we'll just need to either put this before the festival switchover or put the festival first and then take that into account here. So we are iterating through the player name and festival tables, and within that, the festival number, festival data. We're pulling off those, so we have 1, and then the tokens. So in the festival data, for fix up the tokens tables. So what do we need? We want to iterate through this table, and we know that we want to delete all of the old entries and add all of the new entries. And we've seen before that that's an easy way to get into trouble, because if you add entries to a table while you are iterating through it, you will get bad behavior. It might be defined behavior, it might not be undefined behavior, but it will not iterate correctly. So we're going to go local new tokens equals a table, and this is where we'll add new entries to here. Then we'll swap this in place of the old one, and that will just remove the old entries. So for token number, token count in pairs of festivals table dot tokens do. And what we're going to see is we want new tokens of an entry of something to equal that token count instead. And we need that something. So local token name equals, and we know that's stored in the token UI order for this. Token UI order. Oh no, it's not. It's stored in this table up above. Old festival token data. We know it's in festival number. And then once you have that, it's in that order. So token number. So now we have a token name, new tokens, token name equals the token count. And at the end of this, we want to set festival tables dot tokens equals new tokens. Okay, so that might be our conversion function. Are we getting that called? We can see that we are eventually getting that called. So let's see how broken it is. Remember, we are working with, this is the save file as it currently exists with numerical keys and numerical counts. Let's take a look at this. Now, nothing broke so far, so let's see if anything happened. Nothing obvious happened. Now, part of that might be because nothing else knows that we've done this, so the rest of it might be being populated for us. Trillian says, just as a thought, why do you need this conversion? Wouldn't deleting and reading from the wallet do the same? Absolutely. For the current character, we don't really pay attention to this information at all, which might be part of why we're not seeing it persisted out into the file. But the nature of Festival Buddy is that it can show you the tokens for any of your alts on that server. And so if we just blow away the information, which is a valid thing to do, then there will be kind of what I would call data loss, in that you won't know the status of the tokens of the other characters until you log into each one of them with Festival Buddy running. Whereas if we successfully write the upgrade code that takes the old file and sticks it in the new format, then you will immediately have access to the exact same data. And that's sort of the smoother option for a user, as far as I'm concerned, is they upgrade, they log into Festival Buddy or LOTRO, and they load Festival Buddy and they see how it is. They unload Festival Buddy, they upgrade it, they load it back in, and nothing, I don't want anything to change. Like if they open the alts window and there used to be 20 characters there and now there's nothing there, that feels, like something we could have addressed, if that makes sense. So, yeah, we don't need that for the current character, but this is for all characters. This character file has all characters on this server in it. And hopefully that makes sense to Aaron. But great question. Julian says, I see the point, but I would not have put the effort into this if, after logging in all characters, I did not see a difference. Yeah, the big thing is, writing this code is good practice, because the bigger part of this change is the fact that each festival is listed by the order of appearance in the user interface. So 1 means spring. And what I would like to do is reorder all the festivals so they match the order of appearance throughout the year, with the exception of some things like Hobnanigans and Illegal Association. Can't do anything about that. But I want to reorder the things in the user interface, and that means I also want to do this exact same change, but for festival names, not just tokens. So this is the microcosm of the bigger change. So we're writing code that is going to be useful in solving the next problem, which is the next level up, where all of the festivals for all of the characters also need to be tweaked. So once we've written the code for one of these successfully, the other one should fall into place pretty quickly. And that's a bigger question. Tokens, they're not a big deal, but all of your data for all of your festivals, I would like to maintain that if possible. And because it's the same basic logic in both places, doing this here lets us practice what we're going to do there. However, I'm not convinced we're actually calling this function. Also, what's up with that indentation? So we're going to do a turbine dot shell dot writeLine and say that we're in the function. We're not in the function. Well, that's probably because child next door is making some very strange noises. Okay, we're going to go ahead and restore an older version of this file and go ahead and load. Awesome! Bad argument to pairs. Table expected got nil. Perfect. I mean, not great, but what were we assuming? Maybe we're assuming that the tokens always exists. Maybe there's some cases where it doesn't. Just scrolling through here, like tokens pretty consistently exist, but let's actually take a look. That was line 113. 113, we were assuming that festival table.tokens exists. Okay, so let's go ahead and info dump festivals table. We'll dump that, and we'll still crash so that we can see where we were. Well, I don't actually see where the problem is. Cooldowns, tokens, cooldowns, tokens, cooldowns, and tokens. Yeah. All of these seem to have tokens. Bad argument to pairs, though. All right. Festival table. Oh! We're supposed to be looking at festival data, of course. Well, that will teach us. Maybe. Okay, so we can see our tokens are getting transformed. We can see our tokens was 1, 2, now it's bad to taste, bad to dishonor. We can see our tokens were a bunch of that, with 39 of something. Now we have 39 of mithril and 0 of the rest of them. Okay, that's pretty cool. Let's go take a look at that in our file here. So we have tokens, and okay, the names are persisting. So the problem, we weren't seeing an update in the file just because it thought it had already updated the file. We're going to see that consistently, so we're going to keep copying old file version data in so we can keep seeing the upgrade process run. Okay. We can see that the name change is working as expected. I was really hoping to see my current character. Who am I logged in with anyway? Ruzumacher. Okay. Ruzumacher, tokens. Now we can see our code, and this is not a surprise, the transform code has transformed the values for Mithro and Spring Festival. 100 Mithro, really? 98. That's strange. We can see we've gotten these values. Oh, I probably spent 2 cents then. Yeah, it was 100 there. Okay, but the rest of the code is still expecting those numerical indices. So this is where we can go ahead and find all those use of tokens here and start the conversion to the new system. So now that we can assume that all the tokens are of this system. Okay, so with that being said, what else do we have? Lang is now split between that. Barter tokens used at festivals. Order of barter tokens in the UI. Okay, so that just gives us a little what's going on here. And this is a reminder to us that this happened. Great. We have deleted those constants. We've incorporated them into the update. Awesome. Now that it is broken apart, any place that uses the save file data needs to be updated. And that's what we're working on right now. Okay. Well, while we're doing that, keep making coffee. All right, we had a couple of info dumping statements here. We're going to go ahead and nix those. So that next time we load this in, it won't be nearly so busy. And let's verify that we haven't broken anything yet. Okay, updated tokens. Great, one last write line. Okay, awesome. We have some documentation here. That's all great. Let's take a look. Now, the only usage of tokens remaining, because everything else is token IDs and token UI order now, should be referencing the save file format. Or is just a comment that happens to be talking about it. So we can see we have a to-do file. We don't need to worry about that. Tokens. Okay. So the relative festival table, we can see tokens is referring to what we're talking about here. And so it begins. Any place in here might be relevant. The conversion file itself, probably not. These are all comments. Awesome. So we have possibly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 files to review. Cool. Okay, so we're iterating through the character save data to do something. And what we want to do is understand what's up. So we want it to be using the name here, and we are currently using the number when we iterate through this. So we have KV in these pairs here. And that's a really common way to iterate through key value pairs, KVP or KV in tables. So I'm not opposed to that. Sometimes it's really nicer to name your K and your V more meaningful values. Like in this case, if I was iterating through, it would be token name and token count, maybe. And that would indicate that if we think we get a number for token name, that something has gone wrong. It helps us see that mismatch a little bit easier. But what we're really looking for is in the alt window, add tokens that a player has. So what's going on with K? Because that's the one that matters here. Well, we're going to change how we are looking at the token UI order. Because now that we've got K, that name, we'll be able to look into the token IDs directly. And that's what we really care about. Where else do we use K? If anywhere. Let's go ahead and find our references. And that's getting the K, using the K there, and okay, that's super easy. So it's still the internal key for a token, so it's simply just keep it as K. and the V is the count. That hasn't changed. So it's not the token UI order anymore. It is, whoopsie, it is the token IDs. And then conveniently, we have checked for the existence of this thing, and then we're using this thing. So that feels nice there. Now, we could go ahead and call out that is token ID. And we're going to call out its token IDs from this. And then we could use token ID here. And get token from ID, token ID there. I don't know if that's any more particularly more readable, but it's a little bit more obvious that they're talking about the same thing now. So we think we're getting our token IDs from here. We think K is the internal key of a token. Yeah, that all seems fine. So that is a fixed up version of this that now understands that we're expecting there to be names here. That's the alt-win. Let's look at barter. All right, so key 1 equals the ID, 2 equals that. Well, that's fine. The real question is, oh, okay. That's the idea of the thing that you're buying, and that's the token that you're using to get it. Okay, no worries. But we've already fixed this up. Awesome. Done. Festival functions, tokens. All right. We're looking at festival data checks, and this is a older way of doing data fix-ups. Now we have the idea of versioning information for save files. So okay, if the tokens table doesn't exist, then make it. That's fine. And if we don't have an entry for a specific thing, then go ahead and make it. That's fine. Except the token UI order, is that what we want to do now? Let's go ahead and bring this on over. Okay, so the token UI order, that gives us, we want to use V instead. But there's sort of the question of, do we care about the UI order anymore, or do we really want to be basing it off of the actual IDs for this? So I think the answer is probably over here. So we're going to iterate through here. And by iterating through the token IDs, why is it called E for the festival? I don't know, but it is. We're going to iterate through that. And then if the table of the festival of tokens of that K is nil, then we're going to go ahead and set it to 0. And that's going to be switching out to be using those keys instead. Awesome. That's all we needed. That's everything from the data checking function. And that's part of probably why these are being initialized that way. Okay, so the thought was, well, I don't think we can convert the tokens at this stage. I think we have to deal with them as they were. Let's take a look at this. So in this, if not, what are we doing here? Or rather, why are we doing here? The goal is to remove entries in the tokens that do not correspond to something. But there's a potential mismatch between the data in the save file and what we're comparing it against. And I think the whole point of this was to fix that. To say, hey, if we've removed a token from the UI, we need to get rid of that as well. And if that's the case, we probably want to go ahead and capture the data that we're trying to do here. So, amusingly, it's basically the same as in the tokens view. This old festival data is actually what we need for that as well. And so let's go ahead and make a new file to store that in. Tokens pre v11.lua. And in that, we're going to go ahead and store this. And we're going to go ahead and import that in here as well. So prior save formats, and we have rename. Now, is that necessary, or should I just import this? It's probably overly complicated. Okay, so new plan. We're just going to go ahead and import this in the other location. Use old festival data in tokens v10 to v11 to check the token data. Okay, and so what we want to do here is be looking at that. So we're going to pull it over here for reference. So we don't care about the token UI order. What we care about is prior save formats old festival token data. Old data. We're going to be checking festival ID and K. So if there's a kth index, numerical index of festival ID in the old festival data, or sorry, if there's not that, then we're going to kill the kth one here as well. That'll work. Okay. Now, I think that's good. We're going to work through the last file here and make sure. And that is our main window. So we have a section called tokens, suspicious, and we are looking at character save data. And what we're looking at is we have something called token UI index. That's probably no longer correct. So we would have been storing a numerical thing and a count. So let's see what we have. Tokens, and we're looking at 3 different locations here. That is all. Based off of token UI index. Awesome. That is a reasonable thing to call that. That was probably a recent rename. Okay, so going through the token UI order. Token UI order of the select. So the token key is now the thing that we're interested in. So we want to save token key equals get quantity. Okay. Token key equals get quantity, token key equals 0. Okay, so that's all the references that we were looking at here. What we want to do for testing purposes is grab that old version 1.0 data, bring it in, save it, and then load Festival Buddy. See what happens. Awesome. Well, Festival Buddy did load, and if I look at my alts window, I'm going to see some information. So let's come into well, the amount of mithril they have is going to be a little inconsistent. We should probably add some special logic for that. Aphrodite specifically has primroses and 1,000 spring leaves. Awesome. If we look at Riesemacher here, doesn't show up because it's not an alt. We can see the 38 and the 98 there, though. I think that's really interesting. The fact that there's a separate mithril coin entry for each character and for each festival is probably not correct. I mean, it is correct in the historical layout of this program, but logic fixes if one mithril coin value for one festival for one character changes, it really changes for all festivals and all characters because they point to the same thing. And really that's true for any item that is account-wide or at least server-wide. I don't know that there's too many other festival items that are that way, but mithril coins are definitely one of them. That would be a useful annotation. I don't know if we're able to get that information from here, whether it would show up green here or not, but let's go ahead and give a quick look at the documentation and see if the functions we're using for that might do that. So let's look at the wallet item. That's probably going to have some of that. Hey, there's an isAccountItem flag. Gets a flag indicating if the item is shared across all characters of an account. So what we can take a look at is if a wallet item has isAccountItem equals true, then whenever the value changes, we should change it everywhere. So that's a future fix. Awesome. Thank you, API documentation. Now, just because it's in the API documentation doesn't mean that it works 100% of the time. There are a few glitches in how the game actually works, but the fact that it is in the API documentation suggests that it's a path forward. Neat. Okay, so coming back to the save file, though, we can see, after we've unloaded this thing, that Riesemacher's tokens now only have the new format, and they no longer have those old numerical indices that were being added back in. So that suggests we both updated the file to the new format, and the new format is getting used consistently. So if we come on in, we can see that Arda, let's go ahead and find Arda. No, Aphrodite.
And we can see under tokens, no race tokens or violets, but we can see 37 mithril, and again, that's an error. Marigold, 0, but 5 Primrose and 1048 Spring Festival. Now, this has the added benefit of being a lot more readable if you're looking at this and wondering what the values are. Downside is that there's a lot more characters here. So in a file with dozens of characters, you are wasting might not be the right word. You're using a bunch more characters. So you're using 15 characters in the file instead of 1. That is something to consider in a large enough file. There are only 15 versions of this, though, so there's a few hundred extra characters per festival token in play, is kind of the gist of it. And we can actually, hang on a sec, can I see? Okay, the old one was 38 kilobytes. And the new one is 50 kilobytes. So about a 30% expansion, just because the names of these things are a little bit more fluent. And that's off of an account with maybe 15 characters. And so if you had an account, if you had 50 characters on a server, maybe that's possible. You'd see a bigger explosion here, but it seems to be not too bad on the face of it. Okay. Now, the solution, I think, would not be going back to numerical indices that were tied to the UI, but to just come up with something shorter, like a single digit for the festival, so S for spring, and then a single character for the actual token. And that would just be completely unreadable and maybe a lot harder to maintain, but it would be a lot smaller file size-wise. Okay, let's go back to our to-do item because we've made some really great progress. And actually, we're going to go to our source control and start committing some of these changes because if it's working, I want to save that. But let's look at to-do. What was up? What were we thinking? Okay. So, the way tokens is stored in Lang doesn't seem right. We need to break it apart. Done. Any place that uses the save file data needs to be updated. Also done. So that completes this side quest, giving us a reputation with the Plugin Developers Guild. And we can go back to the save file format changes that we were looking at. Character tokens, that was the specific one that we were looking at, is the indices or the ordinals for the current order of festival tokens, which was the problem. Now, the proof of concept here is going to be changing the order of things. Hello, little cat. What you up to? Yeah? You want to come say hi? Okay. Did you want a treat? You do want a treat. Come on. They're right here. I know your eyesight's not great, but come on. You love these things. Come on. No? All right. Okay. So, I think we've successfully made progress on that. Let's go over to our source control and see all of the chaos that's happened here and make sure it was all intentional. So, we'll go ahead and commit this first. Created functionality to track old upgrade function for token data between V10 and V11. Okay, let's go ahead and try to capture this tokens stuff. Broke out lang.tokens into two parts, IDs and UI order. Commodore says, heading out to work, but once again, thank you for doing this every week before. We appreciate you. Well, you're very welcome. I'm glad you're able to be around for a little while. All right, so we've had the split here, just out of curiosity. We have the token IDs, we have the token UI order, nothing else in there. Great. And in strings, the other side of it, we have all of these numerical IDs, and we have the actual token entries themselves. And all of that is getting cut out. There's a weird new line here. I don't feel like that needs to creep in. Okay. Now, any place that references those needs to get fixed as well. But we didn't actually do that before starting to go into the save file stuff. So also updated save file. I don't know. We'll play around with that. No. Also updated save file format. Now, ideally, we would have broken that in two. I just got so excited I forgot myself. And I don't think I can consistently pull out which one is which. That's okay. We'll do better next time. So this is all token stuff. And do we think it's all reasonable? Okay, here's the note on the logic. We've got that noted somewhere else, but it can be here as well for the next time we're in here. Token, token, token. Token key, token key, token key. Looks great. All right. So we've got our tokens. We're not taking the verbose output equals true. I'm not actually sure it's working anyway. Okay, so use that. Do the thing. And also update token data. All of that looks great. Stage. Okay, token IDs. Great. What's going on here? Okay, I did capture that token ID here. Instead of referencing the same thing multiple times. I'm comfortable with that. Barter item window. This is where all of those, because we were killing those named numerical constants for each of the festival tokens, we needed to change that as well. All seems reasonable. And finally, barter win had a token change. Great. Bam. So that gives us the clean working directory again. Lovely. Always prefer that. What are you doing, little one? Cat is going all over. Okay, so loading code assumes everything is a character, which meant the version entry broke the code. Now we actually have fixed that. The next thing we wanted to do in care data is the festival indices. As mentioned before when Tulare was asking, that feels like the bigger one here, which is every one of these entries here in the save file corresponds to the index, the user interface index in which they show up. So spring shows up first, So it has a numerical entry 1 in the save file, which means if you want to reorder these, and I do, you will break the save file data, which I don't want to do. So that's what's coming up here. Now, I'm hoping that's actually going to be kind of straightforward because we just did the exact same thing for tokens, but the reality is the festival number is everywhere. But it's always selected festival this, selected festival that. So if we just change that selected festival to being a text instead of a number, it might work out okay. Let's take a look at some of that. This is actually a good example. Selected festival. It's not the only way that we refer to it, but every place, so there's 91 results for selected festival. And that's coming from settings.festival, sure. But once we have selected festival, if that were a name, that could work. Let's take a look at our strings and our quest strings files. So in here, we have our festivals, and they're listed by spring, summer, harvest, month, field, whatever. So these could be updated. Okay, so the debuffs have entries for each of these, but again, if spring was just equal to the string spring, that might just work. The quests themselves, same thing. That's not my scroll bar. Okay. Options doesn't matter for that. Okay. So that would be a first question is, can we just change these over as a starting point? The answer is maybe. And then when we're iterating through, instead of getting numbers 1 through 9, we would need a UI component of it. This is true. But that's just a single part of it. So festivals UI, what do we call the tokens? Yep, UI order equals, and then we could do 1 equals spring, and so on. So if we come grab this here, and again, we'll just pop open a buffer in Sublime Text for this manipulation. Now, the quotes thing is interesting because, again, the simple thing is to just use those existing variables and all in one swoop change the variables from numbers to names. So that's an interesting idea, is the population of that here. I wonder how quickly we could get that to change. Probably not Probably not. We'll need a little bit more work. Okay, so that's a UI order versus just the strings, the string information of that. So that seems like a first thing that we need, breaking the two of those apart. But then we need to look at any place that is referencing festivals and figure out what's it doing. Okay, getting the string, awesome. Okay, so we're referencing festival number here for get festival number and quest key from new quest. But do we actually need it to be number, or is it just that key? So let's take a look at that. Now, the simpler thing would just to be to separate out the idea and just say we can keep those numbers in there. And maybe this is the better idea all along. We can keep the numbers in there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They don't mean anything. We just convert that internally into the actual index that we are using. And then we have a bidirectional lookup table. So 1 can turn into 4, 4 on the other end would turn into 1. I think on the face of it, I don't see a particularly compelling reason to go with one design or the other. But now in this after the fact, it would probably be a little bit easier to do that. But that's about the only thing I can think of as the main benefit for going that direction. And my goodness, we've already gotten an hour and a half into this stream. So I might cut it off a little bit short today. We've made some really good progress, and there is real life stuff that needs being done. So I'm going to be thinking through this festivals change for a little bit here. But in the meantime, if you've got any questions, comments, concerns that hasn't made it into chat, now is a great time to start getting that in there. Okay. How is the return? How are the return values here used? And in fact, we're going to go ahead and take a look at that. So we had the function get festival number and quest key from a new quest name. And we get that number, refresh festival, festival number, festival number, festival number. Really, that was just emphasizing that that's what that key was at the time. I think we could fix that up right now. So that's really festival key. And quest key. So we're going to get festival key and quest key. And we're going to go ahead and rename this. So that is going to be festival key. And then in here, for festival number, again, we want to make that festival key. And pairs that. And we're iterating through quests here. For that festival key. And so what we're getting is the quest key and the quest languages. So we could actually do the same thing, and that's going to be quest key as the name, and our, oops, why are you not cooking coffee? Chop chop. Oh, because I don't have any coffee. All right. We'll allow it. Okay, so we have the quest key, and the V in that is the thing that we would pass to get string. So that's quest names. Okay, and then starting character, use plain text to find, quest to check equals the get string from the quest names, find result, and if find result, then we return the festival key and the quest key. And now we have a get festival key and quest key, and the internal variables correspond to that. And coming in here, we have festival key and quest key. Awesome. So refresh quest guide. The selected quest equals quest name. And that's concerning. So we're getting the string out of that. That just seems wrong. Selected quest. Let's go to the to-do file. Selected quest uses the localized quest name instead of the internal quest key. Why? Okay. But that being said, our refresh quest guide refresh festival, we pass in the festival key. It says festival number, but we understand. And we're going to get string. So as long as we need to be able to translate that. Need to be able to translate the festival key to number using the festival UI order table. But let's go ahead and commit that other change while we're in here. Updated helper function names and variable names. Okay, so that's the name itself. And more names, more names, names. More names. Love it. Let's take that. Not that, and added initial festivals order, UI order. Now the problem with that is it's not actually in the right place. It's in strings. It's in no way supposed to be strings. I could see that going into globals. I mean, the real question is, do we see a future in which people can choose the order and visibility of festivals. For instance, if you're never going to do Hobnanigans, maybe you would like to hide Hobnanigans from this list. Same thing with the In-League Ale Association. Actually, I might ask my resident festival person, would it be interesting to be able to customize both the order and visibility of festivals in the Festival Buddy UI to maybe say, don't show me Hobnanigans or In-League Ale Association, or always put anniversary at the top, or that kind of thing.
I expect there are people who would only want to see FP festivals and would want to have that.
Yeah.
I would want to have them in the order that they happen in the year.
Yeah. Yeah. Little Redhead is saying that she would prefer the order that they appear in the year, which is how I do it as well. Except, of course, I like to start mine with the anniversary, and she likes to start hers calendar year, or possibly vice versa. I can't remember. We had a disagreement on which comes first, though. I think the way it was in the deed tracker was not filling her with joy. So being able to change the order that they appear might be helpful if you disagree with me which one's the first one of the year, and also changing the visibility. So those are both things I have an interest in, I think. So the festival's UI order, this is sort of a default order for one thing, and definitely doesn't belong in Lang because there's nothing language about it. If there's no translations here. Yeah, if there's no translations, it doesn't really belong here. And a lot of things are here that are maybe a little miscategorized, but that's the big thing that I'm saying right now is the tokens we got out of here, and now it's this thing. So it doesn't go in Lang, it goes somewhere. The question is where. Options win isn't right. It's probably globals. This is where other things like that seem to be going. So the default ordering of, is it even the I think that's going to change before we're done here, but it's a better location for it. So we're going to add an initial UI order table for festivals. Okay, so we've got some thoughts there. We've got that clean working directory again. Looking at all uses of festival, there weren't actually all that many of them. So, debuff key, festival, again, we have a festival number and festival debuffs, but don't actually use festival number here, so it's okay. Globals, default, festival equals 1, that's a really easy change. Settings dot festival. Selected festival, yeah. The population of selected festival, in fact, let's go ahead and remind ourselves. That's a thing. Settings.festival, refresh with that thing. Yeah. Fill main window with festival, but that, if we go into images, we can see festivals. Yeah, if we change these variables, that would just work, I think. What else? The festival equals nil, cool. And again, images festival. I think getting settings.festival, we need to update that. need to update save file settings .festival, because that is getting saved somewhere. I'm not sure. Setting. Nope, it's not in here, but it could be in the character specific settings. Yep, festival equals 1. So I need to update save file settings in festival buddy settings .plugin data, and change how it's initialized. Then changing selected festival and the festival constants spring should just work, question mark. Selected festival's the tricky one. It's used all over, but I think in general we don't actually care what it is. And so changing it from a numerical index to a string index probably just works in most cases. But there are 90-ish different locations to think about. So this might be one of those forgiveness versus permission kind of things. Just change it and see what happens. And we can see if the festivals themselves changed from integers to strings, then when we're doing these comparisons between selection festival and these festival constants, that just works seamlessly. So I think if all the structures in things like lang, image, etc. were updated, quest strings were updated, if their keys were updated, and if the save file was updated, I think things would work pretty transparently. So that's what we'll work on next time, is abolishing the use of indices in the save file that correspond to the UI ordering, so that we can decouple the data from the UI in a way that makes the data a little bit easier to read and handle, and makes it so that the UI, we can do things like hide or reorder or whatnot. Yeah. Neat. Well, thank you very much for joining me on this attempt to get my Festival Buddy back up and running, because it was broken there for a couple of weeks. I think that's everything we're going to cover today. Tomorrow is Scenario's Casual Stroll in, I think, Eastern Gondor. It's going to be at 2 p.m. Eastern U.S. time here on the LOTRO Stream channel. So tune in for that if you're interested to hear what he has to say. So that's everything we're going to cover today. Next week, we'll get back at it. And otherwise, thank you so much for joining me on this exploration of LOTRO plugins. Hope to see you next week. Until then, keep plugging along. All right, bye-bye now.